Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know, my name's Joe, and this channel has historically been about ADHD, but I'm going to start talking a bit more about the work that I'm doing to heal my, I don't want to call it childhood trauma, but it is. I mean, I hate using the word trauma, but yeah, I'm trying to heal all of my insecurities and be the best person I can be. And that's mainly in the settings of relationships. So for those of you who watched my previous videos, I was in a long-term relationship that ended. And during that time, I knew it was going to come to an end, or I had a strong suspicion it was going to come to an end. So when I did become single, I thought, great, I'm ready to get out there. I'm ready to start dating. Not straight away, there was a time period. But I met someone quite soon on, and it was too soon. I even knew that at the time, but you know, we went with it. And this is no fault of this person's, but that relationship highlighted all of my insecurities and some that I never realised I had. And I'm really grateful for that, because if we don't realise what we need to work on, then we can't work on it. So I've really been on a bit of a journey at the moment, trying to better myself, and it's been really good. It's been amazing, been life-changing. Sounds a bit strong, but genuinely, it has really been life-changing for me. I'll give you a bit of a brief backstory. So for probably the last 3 to 4 years, I think ever since my daughter was born and my mum passed, I've realised there was some work to do. I think when my mum passed, I was a lot more emotional this time. So my father passed like 10 years previous to that, and I felt that I didn't really grieve. I wasn't emotional enough. Didn't feel the feelings that I should have been. I felt more of the feelings when my mum passed, but I still felt there was more to come out. I felt I was still like bottling it up. I wasn't like that in tune with my own emotions and feelings, which led me down the route of going to a therapist. And at the time, so I also was showing signs of being an avoidant in a relationship. So I don't know if any of you guys have experienced, guys or girls have experienced like avoidant tendencies. Historically, throughout my dating life, I'd got sort of like 6 months to a year into a relationship, and then I'd really started to pick faults in a relationship and try to get out of it. And I went to talk therapy. I did a lot of talk therapy, and what talk therapy did was made me realise why I was the way I was. You know, and for me, like anybody that knew me or knows me, growing up, my parents loved me dearly, but they both had their own trauma and own things going on. I don't want to dig too much into that because I feel like that's a bit too personal, but what that led to them being is very much present for me. They never let me down, but they wasn't very emotionally there for me. You know, like never really telling me they love me or hugging me or, you know, that sort of stuff. And you don't realise it at the time. Obviously, it's your norm, isn't it? That is your norm, so that's all you know. But that had a lasting impact on me. And like from what I know now about psychology, children need to be seen, heard and felt. So they need to have all three of those, otherwise there's going to be some sort of issues later on down the line. And that's exactly what happened to me. So talk therapy was great at making me intellectualise what was going on with me. But what happened was, I did all this talk therapy, and I did learn some coping strategies with my ex-partner, my long-term relationship. And we worked on a few things, I tried different things, but it wasn't quite working. I personally think that was because me and my ex-partner weren't suitable for each other, so we ended. But then I got into another relationship, and it's funny because all of the avoidant tendencies that I've worked on, I then became very anxious. Now some of this was my own fault, and I'm not going to go too much into the intricacies of it, but I become very anxious, and I felt like I needed like reassurance, and I become almost like feminine within the relationship. And at that point I knew, and this was quite early on, at that point I knew that I needed to do some more work. I think at that stage I'd always thought like I need to probably sit down with a different therapist and, you know, have one of them like really crying deep moments with them, really get to the bottom of my past. And I suppose that was the case. Like what was true in that is that I needed to really dig into my past. I really needed to like get to the bottom of why I was feeling the way I was feeling. But I found a guy online. I was on Instagram and I ended up following loads of like pages to do with attachment and like just bettering yourself as a man. And I found a guy called Dan Lunn. Absolutely amazing. I'll try to remember to put his details down below because he's incredible. Basically, all of his posts really resonated with me. So he talked a lot about start of a relationship, how you dive in. So for me, I find someone, I just fall madly in love with them. Well, not love, it's not actually love, it's lust. I like get overwhelmed by this lust, this like the company of that person, and I just get so tunnel visioned on them. And then 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the line, I start to resent them because they're not fulfilling me in the way that I want. And some of that's about choosing the right person, but ultimately, I just devoted to that person too soon, and that's because I had a deep insecurity that wasn't enough. And I had that realisation, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a month into the programme that I'm doing with Dan, and wow, that hit me really hard. To know that you've given a lot, and it's almost a good thing because, you know, it might mean that you prioritise that person or you really treat them like excessively well, like whether that's with your time, whether that's money, whether that's like stuff you're sharing with them, whether that's words you're using to like make them feel better. You're doing all this stuff, and it is because you're a good person, but deep down it's because you want that same level to be like reciprocated, come back to you. And then, well, what happened with me and the person I seen after my long-term relationship is we did get to a stage and I had to end it because she wasn't reciprocating the level of emotional intimacy that I wanted. Now, I'm not blaming her for this because, like I'd said to you before, I had a lot of insecurities that I was then projecting onto her and needing reassurance. So there's, you know, I'm really, really not blaming her. I think, if anything, that sort of probably scared her away a little bit and made her withdraw. And then what tends to happen, if you know anything about the anxious and avoidant, like the marrying of them or the relationship between them, it's one person's really anxious, so they need a lot of attention. This person gets overwhelmed, feels like being smothered. So this person pulls away, the avoidant pulls away, and then the anxious gets closer and wants more and more attention, more and more from that person. And that doesn't work because this person wants to run away even further. This person needs more and more attention. And I'll give myself some credit. I did spot it early and I had the conversation with this person and I sort of said, look, I need more from you. And she wasn't ready to give me more. And I said, well, unfortunately, we're going to have to go our separate ways. Now, if you're writing it out, you might think you've done the right thing, you've set boundaries, you've done this, you've done that, it's good. And there was a lot of good elements in it. I'll give myself credit for that. But, you know, ultimately, it still was really hard. And, you know, when you feel that person, what it does do to you, if you've got an abandonment wound like me, is it makes you feel that you wasn't good enough for that person. Now, from the work that I've done, I know that I was. And like, in my conscious part of my brain, I know that I was as well because the connection was real. It just wasn't the right time. And ultimately, I messed up in some of that because of the way I was acting. But yeah, so I've been on this path, and I just wanted to do a brief overview now of what I've been doing. But this, my coach, Dan, I think it's probably the best term to call him a coach, but he's all about being there for yourself. So I've always said to everyone, for years, you have to love yourself. But I didn't truly love myself. You know, I used to do things like go to the gym and think that was loving myself. And yeah, it is. But if you go to the gym and you spend all of your time distracting yourself, not really like being there for yourself, not be really being in your thoughts, either listen to a podcast or music or whatever you're doing, you're not really like being in tune with yourself. Like you're not thinking about how you're feeling, you're not connecting with your own emotion. And you really need to do that. So just as a brief overview, I'm going to go into a few more of these like in a longer form video, but there's a lot of just spending time on your own, sitting with your own feelings, meditation, journaling, and then you go into some of the deeper stuff. You look at like inner child stuff, where you connect with your inner child, and all of this. Some of this, all of it may sound a bit like witchcrafty, and I thought the same, but it's so powerful and it really works. Like if you need to buy into it. But trust me, I've done meditations, inner child meditations, where I brought up memories from my past that I never knew I had. It's crazy. And some of this stuff you have to dig up. And some of it, like the memories I had, they don't seem like a big deal. Like one of the memories I'll share with you is I was watching these older kids play football, and I just sat there like all alone because they wouldn't let me play. And you know, like when I went back to it, I just needed some support from my mum and my dad. I needed them to be there for me, to connect with me, show me that love that I was seeking. Not that I was seeking love through like the people getting me involved with the football, but it's that like camaraderie, isn't it? It's like that connection. I was just seeking that. So, and then you also go on to do like your mother and father wounds. So you really dig into your mother and father. Because ultimately, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be deep wounds there because of them. And you know, I always thought during all of my talk therapy, the finger was always pointed at my mum. So for the last 3 years, I've always just thought my mum was the cause of a lot of my issues. But actually, there was some stuff from my dad there. And you know, some of that's quite hard to say because you feel like you're blaming your parents, but it's not their fault. You know, that they were just reacting. They was dealing with life the best way they thought they could with the tools they had. So it's been some really, really deep stuff, but incredibly rewarding. Incredibly rewarding. And I'm going to pivot this channel now to really talk about a lot of this stuff. And I mentioned before, if you watched all of my videos, that I wanted to like create something from this. And I think I'm going to create some sort of either community, or I just want to help other people now because this genuinely has changed my life. Yeah, it's so, so powerful. But if any of this has resonated with you, you need to be there for yourself. Be compassionate for yourself. Once you dig into all of your childhood stuff, and even that, like, think of how minor that scenario was I told you about watching the lads play football and not being involved. But once you empathise with yourself and you're compassionate to yourself, that's when like the real love starts. That's when you really start being there for yourself. So yeah, I've still got a way to go. I'm probably about halfway through the programme. But I think a lot of the deep stuff has been covered and we've done, which I'm thankful for because it leaves you feeling lonely. I'm not going to lie, like it does leave you feeling pretty lonely. But you have to go there. Like you have to go to these darker places to come out the other side. And it's powerful stuff, honestly. It really is powerful stuff. But yeah, I'm going to pivot this channel now to being a bit more focused on how I'm just striving to be the best person I can. Because ultimately, my ultimate goal is I want to have a happy, healthy relationship. Because I firmly believe that that's what we're put on this earth to do. To be with a partner and to live a happy life. And a lot of people were in sad relationships they don't want to be in. And I refuse to do that. Probably a bit too much so in the past, where the minute things got tough, I wanted to leave. Whereas now I've realised what you need to do. You know, if you need to really open up to your partner. My next relationship is going to be a relationship where we're really, really vulnerable with each other. We understand each other's insecurities, and we help each other. But even that in itself, you know, is a video in itself because it's how you pitch some of this stuff, you know. If you talk to somebody, you talk to a partner and say, you did this and then it made me feel this way, that person feels very attacked. So there's so much to learn in this space to have a happy, healthy relationship, because it's the way you frame things, you know. You have to really talk from a place of, when this event happened, it really left me feeling this way, and it brought up some stuff from my past, and I'd love it if me and you could just talk about it a little bit. That sort of angle, and I'm great at talking about this stuff in theory, but actually putting it into practice is a lot harder. And I had that so after my long-term relationship, the girl I seen for a short time, I tried to pitch some of this stuff, and I pitched it horribly. I pitched it so bad. And even after I'd spent a lot of time trying this stuff out with my long-term partner before that, I still pitched it really badly. So it is all about, self-control. It's about being in tune with your emotions. It's about coming at it from the right angles, from like a true place of just wanting to make the relationship better by sharing this stuff rather than attacking another person. So yeah, I've rambled on a little bit here, but hopefully some of this has resonated with you. If it has, stick around, drop some comments down below. I really want to do something. If anybody's got any ideas what I'm missing in life, for me, I've got some ideas about creating a community, because what I'm finding is there's not many men that you can talk to about this sort of stuff. If you're a man, you might, if you're similar to me, like I'm ex-military. I've spent a large part of my life partying. So, of course, a lot of my friends are very testosterone driven. They want to talk about girls and nights out and football and lad stuff, lads. But sometimes I want to have a bit more of a deep chat. I want to talk about insecurities. I want to talk about past traumas. And it's not always easy to do that with people that, are not interested in that. And that's fine. Of course, that's their prerogative. Some of these people haven't had the struggles that we've had, so that they don't need to talk about this stuff. Some people naturally, intuitively, get through their own traumas that they've experienced when they're younger and just work them out. But unfortunately, people like us, they need a bit more. We need to help each other. And I think that community aspect, maybe we can create that here on the channel, or maybe it can be some sort of other group somewhere. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, this channel is definitely going to be more about this sort of stuff. So if you've liked it, please do the good YouTube stuff, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.